Hey, welcome back to the Espresso Outlet YouTube channel, and today we're going to do a how-to with this DF64 Gen 2. We get quite a few questions on how to do burr swaps or install SSP burrs. We've done these previously. You'll see them for like the DF64 Gen 1, but needed to do a nice updated video for the Gen 2. So today I have these SSP Multipurpose Burrs, and these have been previously used. So if you are using some that maybe you're changing it from one grinder to the other, you'll want to make sure to clean out all the pockets and just make sure that the front and back of your burrs are just completely clean. A couple tools that I recommend just to get started with: some sort of a more stiff brush is usually much better than some of the softer ones. They usually come with your grinder. For alignment, I'm going to do the dry erase marker. So these high intensity ones, they work pretty good for me, but any dry erase should work. I recommend something like red. It seems to show up the best. A Phillips head screwdriver. And some sort of a cleaning tool. You might be able to do most of your cleaning with the brush, but I do like to have like a bulb. You can use a vacuum, or if you're careful, you can use an air compressor, but I do kind of recommend being careful because you can damage that declumper if you're just getting really aggressive with cleaning your grinder. And then some foil. We're going to use some foil for shimming. That's usually the easiest way if we need to shim at all. So we're going to get set up and we're going to pull these stock burrs out and we're going to put these SSP multipurpose in. Okay, so to get started, let's just take everything off the grinder. I like to remove the bellows and your anti-popcorn, put that off to the side. We're going to take off the dial indicator and our dosing cup. So to access the burrs, it's really simple. Unscrew this top adjustment ring completely and it will just lift off. And then next, just pull the upper burr carrier off. So you can see that there is quite a bit of coffee stuck in just the screw heads. It's really not that difficult to get out. If you need like a toothpick or something like that because you can't get a good grip, make sure to pick out those screw heads and we will swap those burrs. Okay, so now that we have that kind of cleaned out, grab your screwdriver and loosen up the screws. So once you remove the top burr, there is this silicone O-ring, and I usually just like to run my fingers through it to get any just small coffee particles off and set that aside. It is clear, so it is kind of easily lost. And then there shouldn't be much on the inside, but you can see how I've previously shimmed. If you have any sort of shim or factory shims in your grinder, I usually just recommend starting fresh, pull them all out, and let's clean out this burr carrier. Let's grab our silicone O-ring and our SSP burrs. Now, I do want to note on the SSP, there is a fixed and a rotary. So the fixed is going to be our top burr, the rotary will be our bottom burr. On the stock burrs, there is no top and bottom. If you would like to mark which one was top and bottom for future, you can feel free to do so. So we're going to take the fixed and put it in and align it with the screw holes. So what I like to do is just put the screws in fairly loose, not tighten them down. It's going to be like tightening down the lug nuts on your car. You're going to want to do little by little and go in a pattern. So since there are just 3 screws, I get them pretty much just kind of very, very loose, but snug. And then I'll start to go in a circle, tightening them down. So there you have our fixed burr. Let's move on to the rotating burr. So the rotating burr, it can be a little bit more tricky because it does spin. Now I didn't mention this at the beginning of the video, but I do ask you make sure that your grinder is unplugged before proceeding. You'll want to pick out these screws as they are a little bit more difficult to get out than the fixed burr carrier. So a trick that I like to use if you're having a little bit of a hard time getting this off that burr carrier, if you're able to kind of give it a light turn, it breaks free some of those grounds that get stuck in the sides. If you can pull it off with a little small screwdriver, that's usually the best way to avoid any damage to the outside of the burr. Similar to the fixed burr, we have another one of these silicone O-rings, and make sure not to lose it. I like to just rub it through my fingers or through a towel and set it off to the side. Now, it's a good time to clean out your grind chamber and make sure that there's no ground so that we get a nice level burr. And this can take a little bit of time. I recommend making sure that it is just completely clean, blown out, vacuumed out, whatever you have handy, and that will lead to the best initial calibration. Okay, so now that we have that completely cleaned out, find your silicone O-ring. And if you chose to do this one first, make sure to find the burr that says rotary if you're using the SSP and align them with the screw holes. We're going to tighten these screws similar to the way that we did on the fixed, just little by little. Okay, so that's it for the main installation of the burrs. Now, if you're wanting to check the alignment, it's always kind of a good idea just to check, see where your alignment is. And if you need to shim one of the top or the bottoms, it's really pretty easy to do so with a little bit of foil. So we're going to take our dry erase marker. You don't need to worry about hurting the burrs. Run a little bit of coffee through and it comes right off. So if yours is not marked, usually one of these three ears has a Sharpie mark. If yours does not, I recommend marking it with a Sharpie now. And I usually make this be my top point. And we're going to install the upper burr carrier. You kind of have to make sure that these little rubber tabs are pulled out of the way before it'll go all the way in. And then screw your upper burr carrier adjustment ring on. I do want to note that SSP burrs, they're usually a bit thicker, so your 0 point, this is pretty much completely tight. So our 0 point before was pretty much straightforward. Now you can see it's more at about the 4 o'clock position. So get it tight and then back it off, a little bit. And then what I like to do is just very carefully have them touch. You can do this either with the motor running or by hand, but just make sure it's unplugged if you're doing it by hand. Okay, so they're touching. You don't want them to touch very long. And let's pull this back apart. So these burrs, they are going to be a little bit more difficult to see because they do have additional cuts in them. So on this burr, it's pretty well aligned all the way through here. What we'll probably end up doing is putting a shim here or here just to bring it up a little bit. It really doesn't need that much. But even though you see quite a bit of red through here, it's actually still wiped off. These burrs are a little bit more difficult to see. If you're going to do the stock burr and the HU burr, you can see that these little triangle pieces, they're quite a bit bigger, where on the multi-purpose, they actually have additional cuts in them. So these are usually a little bit easier to see and align, but the multi-purpose, it's a little bit more difficult to see. So that's our top burr. Let's take a look at our bottom burr. So taking a quick look at the bottom burr, there's really not a whole lot of room for improvement. It looks like there's about less than 2-3% right there, and shimming it, it's probably going to cause more problems than good. So we're going to leave this bottom burr and we're going to shim the top a little bit. So to shim the top burr, it's really important that we don't accidentally rotate the holes when we pull this burr off. So we're going to take this burr off and we want to keep it in the same orientation so that we know how to align the burr and where to shim properly. Because if you were to rotate it, it could potentially be a little bit different of machining on one area of the burr than the other, or the burr carrier. So in our case, we really just want to probably put a piece of foil on this area of the burr to try to bring it up a little bit. Probably no more than 2 layers of just regular kitchen foil. Okay, so I prepared my foil and we are going to put it right above the screw head in this case and kind of push it to the back. Now let's put our burr back in and tighten it the same as before. Now to redo the test, let's grab our marker and apply again. Okay, so the moment of truth, let's see how we did. So sometimes it can take a couple of iterations. You can see how this was where we put the foil and how it's nice and clean. I'm probably going to put 1 single layer on this side just to get it perfect. Okay, so we just ran some old coffee through real quick that we're just going to throw away. And if you wanted to check to make sure that all that red marker was gone, you can just pull it back apart. So before you do that final assembly, make sure to have this channel just completely cleaned out and reassemble the grinder for the last time. So I did mention earlier in this video that your 0 point is going to be at a different location if you're going with something like the SSP Burr. So what I like to do for my 0 is just tighten it down to lock, and that's my new 0 point. So take your grind indicator and tighten it down at your new 0 point. If this bugs you, you can get new stickers though. I will let you know that. Okay, so there you have it. It really isn't that difficult to do. Take your time. Take your time. Don't be afraid to take it back apart. It can be a little bit frustrating to do 2 or 3 times, but I promise if you're wanting to get that best alignment, it might take a few times. You really shouldn't need more than about 4 layers of foil max at any point, and that's quite a bit. Usually 1 to 2 is more than plenty. If you have something like your SSP box, I also recommend just storing your old burrs in the box that your new burrs came in so that you can access them in the future if you ever wanted to swap them back. But if that helped you out today, please hit like and subscribe. This does work more or less for all flat burr grinders. Yours might be a little bit different. We do have other videos for like the DF83, the DF64V, and the DF83V as well for burr installation. But I appreciate you guys watching. Please like and subscribe and just check us back. Thanks.